Has war ended between Montecito and Buckingham Palace, or are we just in another little mini battle?
I don't think we're in another mini battle, but I certainly don't think war's ended. I mean, as long as Harry's got breath in his body, war is likely to continue. I think this was just an attempt to bring the temperature down a little bit, to stop those, stupid stories that appear when Harry does something, when another member of the royal family is also doing something, and people start speculating that it was an attempt to take their thunder. I think it was trying to open up lines of communication so that sort of thing doesn't happen so often.
Because we know between the three of us, and let's not be rude to people that we work with or that we speak to, but communications officers and press officers, direct communications may have an overinflated opinion of how powerful they are, but this was communications officers talking to each other. It wasn't private secretaries or CEOs. This was more of a discussion about, we believe, dates, forming some open communication. Sarah, the idea of talking about the dates and the diary, does this open up the chance that when Harry comes over in September, that they may look for some kind of meeting with the king or find out where the king is? Or does it open up this chance that maybe they find a date in a diary for them to actually meet?
I think the key words you're using there are opening up, because this is the first time we're seeing that. These are peace talks. And as we know, in any kind of conflict, peace talks can start with the best of intentions, but there are frequent hurdles along the way. This is the very early stages of this. Yes, as you talk about Harry coming back in September, on his previous visits, there hasn't been any kind of meeting with his father. The last time he was able to see his father was just after the King's cancer diagnosis, when Harry jetted in briefly from California for that 30-minute, 40-minute meeting at Clarence House. I mean, I think it would be a very positive step if we can see that between father and son. But you're right to point out that this meeting was at the level of the communications secretaries rather than the private secretaries that are far closer. Although Meredith Maines, Harry's communications chief in the United States, is also head of household, so she is the kind of right-hand woman for the Sussexes there. The fact that it's happened at all is a step in the right direction, isn't it? Harry had said in his interview that he gave to the BBC in May, "I'm not speaking to my father. I don't know how much longer my father has left to live." Those communication channels were very much closed at that point. This is a move in the right direction. We've also got, of course, the Invictus Games coming to the UK, to Birmingham in 2027. That is definitely a date in the future where I think we need to see some kind of rapprochement between them, because otherwise we're going to have some incredibly awkward optics going on.
It's been years since they walked away from royal life. Yet, the wounds still bleed and the war still rages on. Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's feud with the royal family shows no sign of ending. As long as they have breath in their bodies, the battle continues. Once celebrated as the modern face of the monarchy, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex were hailed as symbols of progress. But the honeymoon didn't last. Behind the palace doors, tension grew between duty and defiance, tradition and independence. And when Meghan and Harry stepped away, they didn't just leave the palace behind, they declared their independence from the institution itself.
Spoken in the past about invitations or potential invitations, and whether, the King and William and the Queen are maybe, in a little bit of trouble here about whether they accept the invitations, whether they actually attend, but that we're going to have to wait and, find out. Well, so I think we've got 2 years. Anything can happen in 2 years. Well, Val, you know Harry. You reported on Harry for a long, long time before, he was off to Montecito. What do you think his game plan is here? Do you think, as Sarah pointed out, that his goal is to reconcile, or do you think there's something more than that? I'm
not sure Harry is a person who's ever had a game plan in his life. But I do think he would like to reconcile. I think he is aware of the difficulties it makes for him, also the impersonal pain that it causes him. I think he thinks it would also help his reputation. But I think that's a kind of third level of consideration. I think the personal ones are far more important. And he said publicly, for him to say publicly that he would like to reconcile with his family in that BBC interview after he lost the security court case was very significant. So, I think anyone would. It continues to cause pain, this rift in the family. And, Harry is a kind of very empathetic guy, feels things very strongly, and I think he'd like to remove that source of pain.
And I think two things that Val picked up on there, that losing the Court of Appeal case is significant because that marks the end of that battle with the Home Office over his security. That then makes it easier for the King to enter into dialogue with his son without being seen to be compromised. But also, he really does want to have that reconciliation now. The tone had shifted in that interview in the BBC from Harry demanding an apology from his family and saying it hasn't been forthcoming to actually talking about the fact that he thinks they probably won't forgive him. Certain members of the family won't forgive him. And I think that tone is very notable and perhaps makes it slightly easier for some kind of initial dialogue to begin.
The monarchy had faced scandals before, but never from one of its own. Across the Atlantic, Meghan and Harry built a new empire not with crowns, but with cameras. From Netflix deals to public speeches, the couple rebranded themselves as global changemakers. But even as they spoke of healing and compassion, the shadows of the monarchy followed them. Every new move, every word, became another chapter in a war they couldn't escape. Royal experts now say reconciliation is a fantasy. Too many words have been spoken. Too many wounds reopened. As long as Harry and Meghan continue to speak their truth, and as long as the Crown stands silent, peace will never come. This isn't just a feud. It's a battle of legacy, loyalty, and love. The Sussexes may live thousands of miles away, but the ghosts of the palace follow them everywhere. The world watches, divided, waiting to see who blinks first. One thing is certain. For Harry and Meghan, this war will never truly end, not while their story still echoes through the halls of history. The interviews, the memoirs, the documentaries. Each revelation landed like a thunderclap over Buckingham Palace. Accusations of neglect, racism, and betrayal painted the firm as cold and cruel. And while the couple claimed they were simply speaking their truth to the royals, it felt like open war. The palace remained silent, the classic royal motto, never complain, never explain. But silence can be deafening. In that quiet, the divide grew wider. Public loyalty began to fracture, some stood with the Sussexes, others defended the crown.
Well, they were telling us, well, we understand that it's about getting rid of the conflict, and there's been a lot of conflict over the last couple of years, right? So it's about deconflicting, I think was the phrase. But you mentioned about the BBC interview. I mean, that was disastrous for Harry because, it's not a secret. We were going to run in the paper the next day saying that the King was open to, opening the door to Prince Harry, depending on how he reacted, and then he came out with that disastrous BBC interview. Do you think that the King is right to accept this now, after everything that's gone on, after all the insults, after this BBC interview that, he really did burn down the olive tree there, I think, for a while? Do you think the King's right to allow or know that his teams are speaking to Harry's team?
That BBC interview is another example of Harry not having a game plan,
yes,
isn't it? Because it wasn't meant to go like that, was it? They weren't expecting to get any more than 5 minutes or so, and he walked into a 30-minute stream of consciousness.
I mean, I've always said Harry has no filter, which is always the great thing about him and the terrible thing about him at the same time.
Yes, it was always refreshing, wasn't it, when things were going well. But of course now, and when you're on the other side and you're in a war with your family, that stream of consciousness, that lack of filter, has proved disastrous for family relations.
So can the King trust him? I mean, this is an offer of friendship. Should the King, if he doesn't have this filter and he has been guilty of lobbing insults and revealing secrets about the family in the past, should he accept this offer of friendship?
What?
I mean, I think that Harry is not Machiavellian. He's not. He hasn't got a plan. He doesn't want to betray. He doesn't want to betray his father. Yes, he betrayed all those secrets because he wanted to let things out in the Netflix documentary and in his book Spare. But I think Charles is primarily in this situation. Charles is a father rather than a monarch, and I think that's very important. And he would like. I think it causes Charles immense pain there's this huge rift in his family. And he said as much. He doesn't want them to make his last years misery. So I think Charles will both want to explore this potential reconciliation, if that's what it is, and I think he's perfectly right to do so.